On his 40th birthday, Ethan Wolf arrives at Miami's most prestigious restaurant expecting a warm celebration. But instead, his wife announces that there is no place for him at the table, next to her lover. The betrayal is heartbreaking, but Ethan is not one to give up. He embarks on a brilliant plan to reclaim his dignity and show the traitors that they'd better not play with him. Can he win without losing himself? Ethan Wolf pulled his sleek Tesla Model S into the valet line at Blue Haven, Miami's crown jewel of fine dining, where the city's elite gathered to see and be seen. The neon glow of the restaurant's sign reflected off the car's polished surface, casting flickers of light across his sharp features. At 40, Ethan was at the peak of his career, a tech mogul who had transformed a scrappy startup into Wolf Tech, a global leader in artificial intelligence. His tailored charcoal suit hugged his athletic frame, and the glint of his Patek Philippe watch caught the eye of the valet, a young man named Carlos, who greeted him with a respectful nod. "Evening, Mr. Wolf." "Happy birthday," Carlos said, taking the keys. "Thanks, Carlos. Take good care of her," Ethan replied, slipping him a crisp $50 bill. His voice carried the easy confidence of someone who knew his worth but didn't need to flaunt it. Tonight was special. His 40th birthday. Ethan had spent the day closing a deal that would push Wolf Tech into new markets, but now he wanted to unwind, surrounded by family and friends. His wife, Clara, had insisted on planning the evening. "Let me handle everything," she'd said weeks ago, her green eyes sparkling with what Ethan had assumed was excitement. "You deserve a night to remember." He trusted her, despite the subtle distance that had crept into their 8-year marriage. Clara's late-night charity meetings and vague explanations had nagged at him, but he'd chalked it up to stress. Tonight, he hoped, would be a reset. Inside Blue Haven, the air buzzed with wealth and ambition. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over linen-draped tables, and the clink of glasses mingled with low laughter. The maitre d', a wiry man in a pristine suit, spotted Ethan immediately. "Mr. Wolf, always a pleasure," he said, gesturing toward a private dining room at the back. "Your party awaits." Ethan strode through the restaurant, his presence turning heads. At 6 feet tall, with dark hair just starting to gray at the temples, he carried himself with the quiet authority of a man who belonged anywhere he chose. Waiters stepped aside, and diners whispered as he passed. He was used to it. Being Ethan Wolf meant being watched. The private room's heavy oak doors stood slightly ajar, and the sound of laughter spilled out, bright and melodic. Clara's laugh, unmistakable, rang above the rest. Ethan's lips curved into a faint smile. Maybe he'd misread her distance. Maybe tonight would remind them both of what they'd built together. He pushed the door open, and the room fell silent. 12 pairs of eyes turned to him, but none held warmth. Clara sat at the head of the table, his usual spot, her auburn hair cascading over a crimson dress that clung to her like a second skin. The dress was bold, almost defiant, chosen to command attention. Beside her, lounging with a predator's ease, was Tyler Reed. Ethan's stomach twisted. Tyler Reed, his former business partner, hadn't crossed his path in 5 years, not since Ethan had caught him funneling company funds into offshore accounts and cut him out of Wolf Tech. Tyler's blonde hair was slicked back, his smirk as sharp as ever. His hand rested casually on the back of Clara's chair, fingers grazing her bare shoulder in a way that screamed intimacy. The table was full, 12 chairs, 12 guests. Not one was from Ethan's inner circle. No colleagues, no lifelong friends, not even his sister, Lillian. Instead, the seats held strangers, Clara's crowd, socialites and hangers-on Ethan had seen at her fundraisers but never cared to know. Their faces gleamed with anticipation, like an audience waiting for the curtain to fall. "Ethan," Clara said, her voice dripping with mock surprise. "You're late to your own party." Her lips curled, but her eyes were cold, glinting with something he couldn't quite name. Ethan's pulse quickened, but he kept his expression neutral, scanning the room. The silence stretched, heavy with expectation. "Seems you started without me," he said, his tone even, betraying none of the heat rising in his chest. Tyler raised a glass, his smile cutting. "The birthday boy arrives. Thought you'd never show." His voice carried a taunting edge, the same one Ethan remembered from boardroom arguments years ago. Clara leaned forward, her gaze locked on Ethan's. "There's no seat for you here," she said, gesturing dismissively toward the door. "Try the curb outside." Laughter erupted, sharp and rehearsed, slicing through the air like a blade. The guests didn't even try to hide their amusement, their eyes darting between Clara and Ethan, waiting for his reaction. It wasn't a joke. It was a performance, orchestrated to humiliate him in front of Miami's whispering class. Ethan stood perfectly still, his mind racing. 8 years of marriage flashed before him, quiet mornings with Clara on their balcony, her laughter at his terrible cooking, the way she'd once looked at him like he was her entire world. Had it all been a lie? The signs had been there. Her unexplained absences, the hushed phone calls, the way she'd pulled away. He dismissed them, trusting her. Now, the truth hit him like a fist. His jaw tightened, but he refused to give them the outburst they craved. "I wouldn't dream of interrupting," he said, his voice low and controlled. "Enjoy your evening." He turned on his heel, the laughter swelling behind him as he walked out. The maitre d' shot him a sympathetic glance, but Ethan didn't acknowledge it. He moved through the restaurant, past curious stares, his steps deliberate, his face a mask of composure. Only when he slid into the driver's seat of his Tesla did he let the facade crack. His knuckles whitened as he gripped the wheel, the engine humming to life. The Miami skyline glittered beyond the windshield, a mosaic of glass and steel that had witnessed his rise. Ethan had built an empire from nothing, outsmarting rivals and defying odds. But tonight, he'd been outplayed by his own wife and a man he'd once trusted. The betrayal burned, but it also sharpened his focus. Clara and Tyler thought they'd broken him. They were wrong. He pulled onto Ocean Drive, the neon lights blurring as he accelerated. His phone buzzed, Lillian's name on the screen. He declined the call. Not yet. He needed clarity, not comfort. Tonight wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something else entirely, a game he intended to win. The Miami night pulsed outside the floor-to-ceiling windows of Ethan Wolf's private apartment atop the WolfTech headquarters. The sleek, minimalist space, glass, steel, and muted grays, was a far cry from the opulent Coconut Grove penthouse he'd shared with Clara. Ethan hadn't gone home. The thought of walking into their shared space, with her perfume lingering in the air, was unbearable after the scene at Blue Haven. Instead, he'd driven straight to the office, where he kept the sanctuary for late nights and laser focus. Tonight, it would be his war room. He sat at a glass desk, the glow of his laptop casting sharp shadows across his face. His tie was gone, the top button of his shirt undone, but his eyes were locked on the screen with predatory intensity. Bank statements scrolled past, their joint accounts meticulously reviewed. Ethan's gut had told him something was off, and now the numbers confirmed it. Regular withdrawals, always just under $9,000, had been siphoned off for months. Small enough to avoid triggering alerts, but collectively they added up to nearly $500,000. His jaw clenched. Clara hadn't just betrayed him emotionally, she'd been bleeding him dry. Ethan leaned back, running a hand through his dark hair, now faintly streaked with gray. The humiliation at Blue Haven replayed in his mind. Clara's cold smirk, Tyler's taunting grin, the rehearsed laughter of strangers. It wasn't just personal. It was calculated, a public execution of his trust meant to leave him reeling. But Ethan Wolf didn't reel. He strategized. His phone sat silent on the desk. He'd ignored 3 calls from his sister, Lillian, knowing she'd cinch trouble the moment she heard his voice. Lillian, 2 years his junior, was a financial wizard running a hedge fund in New York. She'd never liked Clara, calling her a gold digger with a smile after their wedding. Ethan had laughed it off then, blinded by love. Now, her warnings echoed like a prophecy. He picked up the phone and dialed. Lillian answered on the first ring, her voice sharp with concern. "Ethan, what's going on? You never call this late." "I need your help, Lil," he said, keeping his tone steady. "Clara and Tyler Reed. They're working together. I want to know everything, where the money's going, what they're planning." A pause. Then, "I knew that woman was trouble. Give me 12 hours. I'll dig up whatever's buried." Her voice softened. "You okay?" "I will be," he said, dodging the question. He hung up, already pulling up another contact, Joseph Crane, a lawyer with a reputation as Miami's legal pitbull. If anyone could unravel Clara's scheme, it was Crane. By 3 a.m., Ethan was still awake, fueled by black coffee and cold determination. Crane had agreed to meet at dawn, promising to bring his forensic accountant. Ethan's phone pinged with an encrypted email from Lillian. Attached were preliminary findings. The withdrawals led to an offshore account in the Caymans, registered under a shell company. The name meant nothing to Ethan, but Lillian's note was blunt. "Tyler's fingerprints are all over this. I'm tracing the rest. Stay sharp." Dawn broke over Miami, painting the skyline in hues of pink and gold. Ethan stood by the window, watching the city stir. He hadn't slept, but his mind was clearer than ever. Clara and Tyler hadn't just planned a betrayal. They'd built a machine to dismantle his life. The question was why. Money, sure, but the public humiliation suggested something deeper. Revenge? Control? He needed answers. At 7 a.m., Joseph Crane arrived. His silver hair and tailored suit a stark contrast to the dark circles under his eyes. He carried a thick folder and a grim expression. "You were right to call me," Crane said, settling into a chair. "This isn't just a divorce case. It's a heist." He slid the folder across the desk. Ethan opened it, scanning documents with practiced efficiency. Text messages between Clara and Tyler, intercepted by Crane's team, laid out a chilling plan. "He'll never see it coming," Tyler had written. "We frame him for cheating, void the prenup, and split the assets." Clara's reply was colder. "Make sure the evidence sticks. I want him humiliated." Ethan's stomach churned, but he kept his face impassive. "They hired someone to follow me," he said, spotting an invoice for a private investigator. Crane nodded. 3 months ago. They wanted dirt, affairs, scandals, anything to paint you as the bad guy. Lucky for you, you're clean as a whistle. The PI's reports are empty." "Not lucky," Ethan corrected. "I don't play those games." He turned a page, finding a timeline of their plot. It started 7 months ago, around the time Clara began her charity work. Every late night, every vague excuse, had been a thread in their web. "There's more," Crane said, tapping a highlighted paragraph. "Tyler's been sniffing around your patents. Word is, he's got buyers lined up, black market tech dealers. If he gets control of your shares, he could sell WolfTech's core IP out from under you." Ethan's eyes narrowed. His patents were the heart of WolfTech, years of innovation that had redefined AI. Losing them would gut his company and his legacy. "How far along are they?" "Far enough to be dangerous," Crane admitted. "Clara's been cataloging your assets, properties, investments, even personal items. They're targeting anything not explicitly tied to the prenup. The Cayman's account is their escape fund." Ethan closed the folder, his mind racing. 7 months of deception, all leading to that moment at Blue Haven. They'd expected him to crumble, to lash out, giving them ammunition for their narrative. Instead, he'd walked away, throwing their script into chaos. Now, he had the advantage, if he moved fast. "What's our first step?" he asked. Crane leaned forward, his voice low. "We freeze everything. Joint accounts, shared properties, anything with your name on it. I can file an emergency motion by noon, citing financial misconduct. It'll lock Clara out and buy us time to build a case." "Do it," Ethan said without hesitation. "And I want eyes on both of them. Every move, every call." "Consider it done," Crane replied, already typing on his phone. "But Ethan, this is going to get ugly. You ready for that?" Ethan met his gaze, his voice like steel. "They started this. I'm just playing their game better." As Crane left, Ethan's phone buzzed again. Another email from Lillian, this one with a bombshell. Clara had been meeting Tyler at a downtown hotel, registered under her maiden name. Attached was a grainy photo, Clara and Tyler, laughing in a lobby, oblivious to the camera. Ethan stared at it, the last flicker of hope for his marriage snuffed out. This wasn't a rough patch. It was a conspiracy. He stood, pacing the apartment. The city below hummed with life, unaware of the storm brewing in his world. Clara and Tyler thought they'd outsmarted him, but they'd underestimated one thing. Ethan Wolf didn't lose. Not in business, not in life. He'd built WolfTech by seeing 3 moves ahead, and now he'd do the same to protect it. His phone rang, Lillian again. This time, he answered. "What did you find?" "Enough to bury them," she said, her voice crackling with urgency. "Tyler's startup is a house of cards, over-leveraged, bleeding cash. And Clara's been funneling your money to prop it up. I've got names, dates, accounts. You want me to keep digging?" "Every detail," Ethan said. "And Lil? Thanks." "Don't thank me yet," she replied. "Just promise me you'll stay you through this. Don't let them turn you into something you're not." Ethan didn't respond. He ended the call, his reflection staring back from the window. The man in the glass looked calm, but inside, a fire burned, not for revenge, but for justice. Clara and Tyler had declared war. Now, they'd learn what it meant to cross Ethan Wolf. The Miami sun blazed over WolfTech's glass tower as Ethan Wolf stepped into his office, the city skyline framing him like a portrait of power. 3 days had passed since the betrayal at Blue Haven, and though the sting lingered, Ethan had channeled it into action. His desk was a battlefield of documents, bank records, legal filings, and encrypted emails from Lillian. He hadn't slept more than a few hours, but his focus was razor-sharp. honed by the clarity of purpose. Clara and Tyler had tried to break him. Now, he dismantled their world with surgical precision. Ethan's assistant, Maya, greeted him with a coffee and a tablet. "Morning, Mr. Wolf. Your 9 a.m. is ready," and Joseph Crane sent an update. Her voice was professional, but her eyes flickered with curiosity. Miami's rumor mill was already churning, whispering about the birthday dinner gone wrong. Ethan nodded, keeping his expression unreadable. "Clear my afternoon, Maya." And no calls from Clara. "Understood," she said, hesitating. "She's tried the main line twice already." "Block her," Ethan replied, his tone final. Maya nodded and left, leaving him to the quiet hum of his empire. He opened Crane's email first. The emergency motion had gone through. Every joint account, property, and asset tied to Ethan and Clara was frozen, effective immediately. Clara's credit cards, her access to their yacht, even her spa memberships were dead. Ethan pictured her confusion, her manicured nails swiping a card only to be declined. It wasn't petty satisfaction, it was strategy. Cut off their resources, and they'd panic, making mistakes. Lillian's update was next. His sister had worked her magic, tracing the Cayman's account to a shell company linked to Tyler Reed. She'd also dug into Tyler's startup, Reed Innovations, a flashy AI venture propped up by hype and borrowed money. Lillian's report was brutal, over-leveraged by $12 million, 2 quarters from collapse. Investors are nervous. One push, and it's over. Ethan's lips twitched. Lillian always delivered. He dialed her, the line connecting as he gazed out at Miami's glittering bay. "Talk to me, Lil." "Morning, sunshine," Lillian said, her New York accent cutting through the static. "Tyler's investors got an anonymous tip last night, discrepancies in his financials. 3 are demanding audits. His stock's down 10% already." Ethan's mind raced. "Can you make it hurt more?" "Oh, I'm just getting started," she said, a grin audible in her voice. "I've got calls out to every major bank he deals with. By tomorrow, they'll be circling like sharks." "Good. Keep me posted." Ethan hung up, his plan taking shape. Financial pressure would cripple Tyler, but Clara needed a different approach. Her power came from her social status, Miami's charity galas, exclusive clubs, the Instagram glow of influence. Strip that away, and she'd unravel. He called Roman Vega, his oldest friend and the owner of Velvet Pulse, Miami's most exclusive nightclub. Roman answered with his usual drawl. "Ethan, man, you're blowing up my phone. What's the deal?" "I need a favor," Ethan said. "Clara's circle, those socialites she runs with. I want them to drop her." Roman whistled. "Cold, but I like it. She burned you bad, huh?" "You saw the headlines," Ethan said, dodging the personal. "Can you make it happen?" "Easy," Roman replied. "Half those women owe me favors. I'll start a whisper campaign, nothing direct, just enough to make her radioactive. By the weekend, she won't get a table anywhere that matters." "Do it quietly," Ethan cautioned. "No trace back to me." "Who do you think I am?" Roman laughed. "Consider it done." Ethan ended the call, satisfied. Phase 1 was in motion. Isolate their resources, sound out, let them feel the walls closing in. But as he prepared for his morning meeting, his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. A video file, no message. Against his better judgment, he opened it. The footage was grainy, shot in a dimly lit bar. A man who looked like Ethan, same build, same dark hair, sat close to a woman, their heads bent together. The timestamp claimed it was last month, during a business trip to Chicago. The implication was clear: infidelity. A second text followed: "Back off, or this goes to the press." See? Ethan's blood ran cold. Clara was fighting back, and she wasn't playing fair. He forwarded the video to Crane, adding a single line: "Find out how she did this." Within an hour, Crane called. "It's a fake," he said. "Decent editing, but the metadata's a mess. They used stock footage and a lookalike. Sloppy work." "Sloppy or desperate," Ethan muttered. "What's her angle?" "She's trying to scare you into unfreezing the accounts," Crane said. "If she leaks it, she'll claim you violated the prenup first. But it won't hold up. My team's already pulling the original files to prove it's fabricated." Ethan nodded, his mind shifting gears. Clara's move was bold but reckless, a sign she was rattled. He could use that. "Keep digging," he told Crane. "I want every email, every call she's made since this started." As the day unfolded, Ethan moved through WolfTech's offices like nothing had changed. He led a strategy session, approved a new AI prototype, and charmed a visiting senator over lunch. To the world, he was unshaken, The same Ethan Wolfe who'd built an empire from grit and vision. But inside, he was a chess player, calculating every move. By evening, the first cracks appeared in Clara and Tyler's armor. Roman texted. Clara tried to book a table at Velvet Pulse. Told her we're fully committed. She's fuming. Ethan allowed himself a small nod. Across town, Clara was learning what it felt like to be turned away. Lillian called next, her voice triumphant. Tyler's biggest investor just pulled out. Stock's down another 15%. He's scrambling. Ethan, one more hit, and he's done. Make it happen, Ethan said. But Lil, be careful. Tyler's not above playing dirty. Neither am I, she shot back. You focus on Clara. I've got this snake. Ethan hung up, staring at the city lights beyond his window. Miami sparkled, oblivious to the storm he was unleashing. Clara's fake video had been a misstep, but it showed she wasn't done fighting. He needed to anticipate her next move, because if she had more tricks, she'd aim for his reputation, the one thing he'd guarded fiercely. His phone pinged again, this time with an email from Crane's team. They'd found something, a hotel receipt from a downtown Marriott, booked under Clara's maiden name, dated 2 weeks ago. Attached was security footage Clara and Tyler, stepping into an elevator, her hand in his. The date aligned with a night she'd claimed to be at a fundraiser. Ethan's chest tightened, not from pain but from confirmation. Every doubt he'd buried was true. He forwarded the footage to Lillian with a note. Use this if you need to. Then he stood, pacing the office. The plan was working, accounts frozen. Tyler's empire crumbling, Clara's social world shrinking. But the video from Clara nodded him. It was a warning she could escalate, drag this into the mud where reputations died. Ethan wouldn't let that happen. He dialed Crane again. She's desperate, Ethan said. What's our next move? We tightened the screws, Crane replied. I'm filing for an injunction tomorrow, block her from touching any assets, even personal ones. And I've got a team on Tyler's offshore deals. If he's hiding money, we'll find it. Do it fast, Ethan said. I want them cornered before they can regroup. As the call ended, Ethan sat, the weight of the fight settling in. Clara and Tyler had planned for months, thinking they'd outsmart him. But they'd forgotten who he was, a man who'd turned setbacks into empires, who saw patterns where others saw chaos. Tonight, he'd rest. Tomorrow, he'd strike harder. The Miami skyline shimmered under a crescent moon, its lights dancing on the dark waters of Biscayne Bay. Inside Ethan Wolfe's office at WolfTech, the air was thick with tension. A week had passed since Clara's failed attempt to blackmail him with a doctored video, and Ethan's counterstrike was hitting its mark. Clara's social empire was crumbling. Her name was no longer welcome at Miami's elite venues, and her once vibrant Instagram feed had gone silent under a wave of unfollows. Tyler Reed's startup was hemorrhaging cash, its stock plummeting after Lillian's relentless pressure on his investors. But Ethan knew better than to celebrate. Cornered animals fought hardest, and Clara and Tyler were far from defeated. He stood by the window, a glass of sparkling water in hand, his reflection a study in control. His dark hair was neatly combed, his suit crisp despite the late hour, but his eyes burned with focus. The plan was working. Clara and Tyler were unraveling, but a new piece of intel had just landed, and it changed everything. Ethan's phone lay on the desk, open to an encrypted email from his cybersecurity team. They'd hacked into Tyler's private cloud, uncovering a trove of messages that revealed a truth Ethan hadn't anticipated. Tyler wasn't just betraying him. He was betraying Clara, too. The messages showed Tyler meeting with other women, 3 in the past month alone, each encounter meticulously hidden from Clara. One was a venture capitalist's daughter, another a lawyer with ties to Miami's tech scene. Tyler's texts were callous, referring to Clara as a means to an end, and joking about ditching her once he'd secured Ethan's assets. Ethan's jaw tightened as he read, not out of sympathy for Clara but because it was a chance to shatter their alliance. If he played this right, they'd turn on each other, saving him the trouble. He called Lillian, his voice low. I've got something. Tyler's been cheating on Clara, multiple women, documented. I want her to know. Lillian's laugh was sharp. Oh, this is gold. How do you want to drop the bomb? Anonymously, Ethan said. Compile the messages, photos, timestamps. Send them to her hotel tonight. Make sure it can't be traced back. Done, Lillian said. But Ethan, this could push her over the edge. You sure about this? She pushed first, he replied, his tone flat. I'm just giving her the truth. As Lillian worked her magic, Ethan sat, his mind turning to Clara's desperation. Her fake video had been a gamble, but it showed she was willing to play dirty. He'd asked Crane to monitor her communications, and the lawyer's latest report was troubling. Clara had been emailing a tabloid journalist, hinting at a scandal about Ethan. No specifics yet, but the threat was clear. She was looking for a new angle to hit him where it hurt most, his reputation. Ethan's thoughts were interrupted by a knock. Roman Vega strode in, his leather jacket a stark contrast to the office's sleek decor. "Heard you're shaking things up," Roman said, dropping into a chair. "Clara tried to crash my VIP list at Velvet Pulse last night. Bouncer turned her away, she lost it. Screamed about knowing people. Nobody cared." Ethan allowed a faint smile. "Good." Her world shrinking. Roman leaned forward, his usual grin fading. "But heads up, she's been calling old friends, begging for loans. Sounds like she's planning something big. Maybe a runner." Ethan's eyes narrowed. A runner. If Clara fled with whatever money she'd stashed, she could vanish before the courts caught up. "Thanks, Roman. Keep your ears open." "Always," Roman said, standing. "You're playing this like a master, man. Just don't let it eat you alive." Ethan didn't respond, his mind already elsewhere. Roman's warning echoed Lillian's, both worried he'd lose himself in this fight. But Ethan didn't feel vengeful. He felt alive, every move a step toward reclaiming control. Clara and Tyler had tried to erase him. He was simply ensuring they faced the consequences. By midnight, Lillian confirmed the package had been delivered to Clara's hotel, a plain envelope with no return address, stuffed with screenshots of Tyler's betrayal. Ethan imagined her opening it, her face crumpling as the truth sank in. Would she confront Tyler? Spiral? Whatever she did, it would weaken their front. The next morning, chaos erupted. Ethan was in a board meeting, discussing Wolftech's expansion, when Maya burst in, her face pale. "Mr. Wolf, you need to see this." She handed him her tablet, open to a live feed from a local gossip site. The headline screamed, "Tech mogul's wife in public meltdown." The video showed Clara outside a downtown cafe, screaming at Tyler as he tried to walk away. "You used me," she shouted, throwing her phone at him. It missed, shattering on the sidewalk. Tyler's face was a mask of panic as he fled, the crowd filming every second. Ethan watched, his expression unreadable. The board members shifted uncomfortably, but he waved off their concern. "Personal matter," he said, handing the tablet back. "Let's continue." Inside, he felt a surge of grim satisfaction. Clara's outburst had gone viral, torching what was left of her credibility. Tyler's investor lunch, scheduled for that afternoon, was canceled within the hour. Nobody wanted to back a man tangled in public drama. Lillian's next call confirmed it. Another major fund had pulled out, leaving Reed Innovations on life support. But Clara wasn't done. That evening, Crane called with a bombshell. She's hired a new lawyer, Elena Voss, a real shark. Voss just filed a motion claiming you've been hiding assets to starve Clara out. It's a long shot, but they're also pushing for a meeting. No lawyers, just you and her. Ethan's grip tightened on the phone. "A trap." "Likely," Crane said. "She might try to record you, twist your words." "My advice? Stall. Let her stew." "Agreed," Ethan said. "Deny the meeting for now." "What about Voss?" "She's expensive," Crane replied. "Clara's either got a hidden stash or someone's bankrolling her. I'm looking into it." Ethan hung up, his mind racing. Clara's new lawyer was a curveball, proof she was digging in for a fight. He needed to escalate, but carefully. Rushing now could expose him to her traps. He opened his laptop, reviewing the latest from his cybersecurity team. They'd found another lead. Clara had opened a secret account in Panama, funneling small sums from their frozen accounts before the court order. It wasn't much, $50,000, but enough to fund a desperate move. He forwarded the details to Crane with a note. "Trace this. Shut it down." Then he leaned back, staring at the ceiling. Clara's meltdown was a win, but it also meant she was unpredictable. Tyler, meanwhile, was cornered, his empire collapsing. Ethan could almost feel their panic, the cracks widening between them. But a deeper question gnawed at him. How far was he willing to go? His phone buzzed, a text from Lillian. "Clara's booked a flight to Nassau tomorrow night. One way." Tyler's not on the manifest. Ethan's pulse quickened. She was running, and without Tyler. The messages had worked, she no longer trusted him. But a solo escape meant she was cutting her losses, maybe with the Panama money. He couldn't let her slip away. He called Crane again. "Clara's planning to flee. Can we stop her?" "If she's moving stolen funds, yes," Crane said. "I'll alert the feds, file for an emergency travel ban. But Ethan, if we tip them off, this goes criminal. She could face jail." For the first time, Ethan hesitated. Jail. The word hung heavy. Clara had betrayed him, humiliated him, tried to ruin him. But did he want her behind bars? The thought stirred a flicker of memory, her laugh on their honeymoon, the way she'd once believed in his dreams. It was gone now, buried under lies, but it made him pause. "Do it," he said finally. She made her choice. As Crane hung up, Ethan stood, pacing the office. The city lights glittered below, a reminder of what he'd built and what he stood to lose. Clara's flight was a desperate gambit, but it gave him an opening. If the feds moved fast, they'd catch her, and Tyler, too, if he was tied to the Panama account. The endgame was close, but Ethan felt a new weight. This wasn't just about winning anymore. It was about who he'd be when the dust settled. The Miami dawn painted the horizon in streaks of amber and violet, casting a serene glow over the city's restless pulse. Ethan Wolfe stood on the balcony of his WolfTech office, a cup of black coffee cooling in his hand. 2 weeks had passed since Clara's failed attempt to flee to Nassau, and the fallout had been swift and merciless. The feds, tipped off by Joseph Crane, had intercepted her at Miami International Airport, catching her with a burner phone linked to the Panama account. Tyler Reed's arrest followed hours later, his offshore dealings unraveling under scrutiny. Their empire of deceit lay in ruins, but Ethan felt no triumph, only a quiet resolve to close this chapter for good. Inside, his office was a fortress of order. Files stacked neatly, screens dark, the chaos of the past month contained. His phone buzzed with a news alert. Tech tycoon's ex-partner faces fraud charges, but Ethan didn't open it. He'd seen enough headlines. Tyler's startup, Reed Innovations, had filed for bankruptcy, its stock worthless. Clara, stripped of her social status and frozen assets, had retreated to a modest apartment in Hialeah, a world away from the Coconut Grove penthouse she'd once ruled. The city's elite had moved on, their whispers now chasing fresher scandals. Ethan's reflection in the glass door showed a man unchanged on the surface, tailored suit, steady gaze, but inside, he was grappling with the cost of victory. Lillian and Roman had warned him about losing himself to this fight, and though he'd stayed within the law, the cold precision of his plan left a lingering question. Had he gone too far? He pushed the thought aside. Clara and Tyler had chosen this path. He'd only ensured they walked it to the end. His phone rang, Crane's name on the screen. "It's done," the lawyer said, his voice gruff with fatigue. The court approved the final asset liquidation. Clara's personal effects, jewelry, designer clothes, cars, go to auction tomorrow. Proceeds will cover legal fees and potential settlements. She's got nothing left. Ethan nodded, though Crane couldn't see. And Tyler? "Plea deal," Crane replied. "Admitted to wire fraud and tax evasion. He'll do 3 years, minimum. His reputation's toast. No one in tech will touch him again." "Good," Ethan said, his tone neutral. "Keep me updated on Clara's case." "She's facing charges for money laundering," Crane added. "Light, but enough to keep her tied up in court. Her new lawyer's scrambling. But without funds, it's a losing battle." Ethan ended the call, his gaze drifting to the bay. The auction was the final nail, a public dismantling of Clara's curated life. Part of him wanted to attend, to see her world sold for pennies, but he dismissed the urge. It wasn't about gloating, it was about justice, and justice didn't need an audience. Lillian arrived an hour later, her sharp eyes scanning him as she set a tablet on the desk. "You look like you haven't slept in a month," she said, half teasing, half concerned. "Tyler's done, Clara's a ghost. Can you finally breathe now?" Ethan managed a faint smile. "I'm breathing. What's on the tablet?" "WolfTech's latest numbers," she said, tapping the screen. "Stock's up 8% since the news broke. Investors love a comeback story. You're untouchable again." He glanced at the charts, but his mind was elsewhere. "It's not about the stock, Lil." "I know," she said softly. "But you won. They tried to bury you, and you're still standing. That's what matters." Ethan didn't reply. Winning felt hollow when it came at the cost of 8 years of trust. He'd loved Clara once, believed in her. Uncovering her betrayal had been like excavating a stranger. Tyler's fall was easier to stomach. His greed had always been transparent, but Clara's choice to join him cut deeper. That afternoon, Roman texted, "Auctions at 2 p.m. You going?" Ethan typed back, "No, but bid on one item for me." He sent the details, a single request that felt right, though he couldn't fully explain why. The auction took place in a stark government building, far from the glitzy venues Clara had once frequented. Ethan stayed away, watching via a live feed Roman sent. Designer dresses, diamond necklaces, and handbags passed under the gavel, fetching fractions of their worth. The crowd was sparse, bargain hunters, not socialites. Clara wasn't there, but Ethan knew she'd feel every sale like a wound. Roman's proxy secured the item Ethan wanted, Clara's wedding ring, a platinum band with a flawless emerald-cut diamond. He'd spent months designing it, choosing the stone for its clarity, a symbol of their future. Now, it was just metal and rock, stripped of meaning. Roman delivered it to Ethan's office that evening, sealed in a velvet box. "Why this?" Roman asked, curious. "You could have let it go." Ethan opened the box, the ring catching the light. "Some things need a new purpose," he said, closing it again. He'd already arranged for a jeweler to melt it down, not to destroy it, but to transform it into a pendant for a charity auction supporting at-risk youth. The proceeds would be donated in Clara and Tyler's names, a final twist of irony. Let their legacy be something good, even if they'd chosen otherwise. That night, Ethan attended a tech gala at the Perez Art Museum, a glittering affair of Miami's power players. He moved through the crowd with ease, shaking hands, trading laughs, his presence commanding respect. Whispers followed him, not of pity, but of awe. Ethan Wolfe, the man who didn't break. Across the room, a journalist approached, notepad in hand. "Mr. Wolfe," she began, "your resilience is the talk of the town. How do you move forward after such a public betrayal?" Ethan's smile was measured. "You focus on what's real, work, purpose, the people who matter. The rest is just noise." "And your ex-wife's legal troubles?" she pressed. Any comment? He met her gaze, unflinching. "Actions have consequences. The system's handling the rest." She nodded, jotting notes, but Ethan was already turning away, drawn to a conversation about WolfTech's new AI platform. The gala buzzed around him, a reminder that life continued, unburdened by the past. Weeks later, Clara's charges were formalized: probation and restitution, a lenient deal given her cooperation. She took a job as a hostess at a mid-tier restaurant, her days of galas and glamour gone. Tyler began his sentence, his name erased from Miami's tech scene. Their offshore accounts remained frozen, the money clawed back to cover Ethan's losses. Ethan, meanwhile, thrived. WolfTech secured a government contract, its valuation soaring. At a charity event that spring, he stood on stage, presenting the pendant made from Clara's ring. "This is about second chances," he told the crowd, "for those who need them most." The auction raised $100,000, every dollar going to kids who'd never know the story behind it. Driving home that night, Ethan passed the restaurant where Clara worked. Through the window, he saw her seating a couple, her smile strained, her posture diminished. Their eyes met for a fleeting second, but he didn't linger. The light turned green, and he drove on, the city unfolding before him. Clara and Tyler had gambled everything to destroy him. They'd lost, not because Ethan was cruel, but because he was relentless, turning their betrayal into a lesson Miami wouldn't forget. He hadn't sought revenge, he'd sought balance, ensuring their choices came full circle. Now, with the past behind him, Ethan looked to the future, unbroken and unbound, ready to build again.